Hi, it's Danielle Radoichin. Welcome back to In Talks With, where we delve deep into the minds of visionaries shaping the creative landscape. I'm delighted to welcome back guest host, the journalist Simon Chilvers. On today's episode, Simon had the pleasure of speaking to Trino Verkade, Chief Executive of the Sarabande Foundation, a beacon of support and inspiration for emerging talent in the creative world. Founded by the legendary Alexander McQueen in 2006, Sarabande has blossomed into a nurturing space offering not only studios, but a wealth of knowledge through talks and workshops spanning various disciplines. Trino Verkade's journey intertwines deeply with the legacy of Alexander McQueen himself. Hailing from Liverpool, she began her career as McQueen's first employee, standing witness to the genius and innovation that defined his work until his untimely passing in 2010. Since then, she has continued to shape the landscape of fashion, lending her expertise to renowned brands such as Katrantzou and Browne. However, her heart ultimately found its home at Sarabande in 2017, where she now orchestrates every facet of the foundation's operations. In this special episode, Trino Verkade sat down with Simon to share her insights, experiences, and aspirations, from her intimate beginnings with McQueen to her tireless dedication to nurturing the next generation of creatives.
So I think the best thing to do is just explain, what is Sarabande and how did you become so involved in such an amazing project?
Well, I used to work for Lee McQueen. I was the first employee. So I worked with Lee from the very beginning of his career. And obviously over that time, we were also a small design house in those days. It was just me and Lee. So I have really good experience of being in London as a creative with no money. So welcome to the world of Sarabande. And obviously over those years, we were fortunate. Lee was an amazing, incredible creative, I think, as everybody knows. And he grew into an incredible designer. And when he passed, he decided to leave his money to Sarabande, which at the time, although it was established in name in 2006 when he was alive, hence it's called Sarabande, which was the last show we had just done, it didn't exist as an organisation. It was just a name that if Lee wanted to give money away to somebody to help, he could do that through his organisation. I was a trustee at the time, along with his accountant, and we, as it was Lee's money, obviously allowed him to donate it to anybody he wanted to help. That was just done in a very ad hoc, small way. As he passed, the funds were transferred. His estate was transferred to Sarabande, honestly, with very little outline of what Lee wanted to do, because we hadn't had a great conversation about in the future what Lee's legacy was going to be. But we had, over the years, spoken about scholarships, because Lee had needed help to get a scholarship at St. Martin's, and he was given the funds by his Aunt Reenie. So it was absolutely sure that we should give scholarships to creatives to go to college that couldn't afford to go without financial help. So we started off by doing that as soon as the funds came through in 2012. And we did it silently. We didn't let anybody know where the money was coming from, because in those days, perhaps everybody was very interested in Lee and his passing. And we didn't want that to be all people spoke about. We just wanted to help people to go to college. So for the first couple of years, the scholarships were picked by an external judge. They continue to be picked by external judges. The college gives us a short list of applicants who can't afford, according to them, to do the full course without funding. And we started to support St. Martin's with starting off with MA, and we've since added BA courses. So we now do MA, BA, and we've also added on Slade, because before Lee passed, he applied to Slade because he wanted to go and study art. So we now support Slade, MA, Slade final year scholars, BA St. Martin's, BA final year scholars, which is separate to the full fees and living, and MA scholars as well. So I think there's 18 awards that we give out a year. And that's just to fund people to go to college. Then with the rest of the funds that Lee left us, and it wasn't a huge amount by today's let's say, cost of living and expenses of living in the city, but it was enough to buy our first building, which is the initial Haggerston building, which is a really beautiful Grade 2 listed Victorian stable block on the canal where the horses used to live. We used to pull the canal boats. It's very emotive, it's a beautiful space, and we have 15 artist studios, which we basically create the environment of the 90s. And if anybody was in London in the 90s, you will know that this is a space that was built around creative ideas, not driven by commerciality, not driven by desire to be famous, not driven by expectations. It's a community of artists and designers that basically in the 90s, when there wasn't much financial hope for us because it was a very tough period, people just didn't care. They just created because that's what they wanted to do without the hope of making a financial living out of it. But we know that we now need to make a financial living. So Sarabande has a dream of putting creatives together in a community that can support each other, that feel no competition, that are driven by values that will move their creative practice forward. And if they don't make money that becomes the next big designer, that's not of interest to us. It's okay if some of these artists might work 3 days a week teaching, or they might do another role, as long as they are making and creating work that they feel is new and is important to them. And we can support them to do that, because if we don't support them, these ideas are not put out there. And that's what we facilitate. We facilitate those with, we always say we have two dreams of the foundation, and that's to support artists with a unique creative vision and a dedication to their craft. So you want to go do something different, and you're going to do it to the best of your ability. Whether it makes sense or not, we want to support you. So that's our studio complex. And then the third part of the foundation is what we think is quite a pioneering range of talks and workshops and exhibitions, which is just there to inspire the next generation and to include everybody into what is really an amazingly inclusive spot in London, which shows what a great creative environment we still have. And when we sometimes feel a little bit jaded, you walk around the studios and you've just had a little taster.
Yes, I have.
You walk around the
Very
studios
inspiring.
and you walk out and you just feel like your heart's just singing. And it sounds a bit naff to say that, but it is. Your heart sings
No,
when you
but
leave.
you've said in previous interviews, and I think it's one of the things that's really special about this place, is that it's very multidisciplinary. And you talked about the importance of that. Can you say a bit more about what you think the fact that we have so many different people with so many different skills brings to the community, and how that kind of makes sense in the world in which creative people end up working in when they aren't working in isolation?
Well, it's skill sharing, because we deliberately, when we are interviewing for the studios, we look for a range of skills that the artists can share with each other. Because although I think the foundation has a great role to play in many of these creatives' careers, the community that they're part of also has a massive role, and it's that peer-to-peer community, which we might be part of creating it, but it's their community for the rest of their life that is super important. They can lean on the people that they've shared studios with. In 5 years' time, in 12 years' time, can you help me with this? Can you photograph this for me? Can you show me how you did that? I remember you had that contact when I met you years ago. Can you help me with this?
Yeah.
And because of the structure of the foundation, and because we are basically doing the funding, there's a generosity that exists within the artists. And we expect that generosity to be shared, not with the foundation, but with their creative community.
Yeah.
So if you're a photographer and somebody asks you for help, I would expect you to help them. If you're a sculptor and somebody wants to be able to use that material that you're working with, I would expect you to be able to help them. And that's kind of what the system is based on, is we'll give to you, you will help each other, and it's a pyramid scheme in a really nice way.
And tell us about Tottenham. So you moved into Tottenham last year, and this is a temporary space, or until you kind of open a bigger space, which is going to have a sculpture garden and a cafe and all of these other things. So tell us why Tottenham and how you sort of visualise this part of the foundation.
So Tottenham's it's an area where all the artists are and the designers are, because a lot of our British factories are here as well. So a lot of the British designers, they make in Tottenham. And as a foundation, we need to be where the artists are. There's no point us them coming to us. We want to be in their environment so they can use the studios, they can be here all the time. So Haringey has got a huge creative community now, because people can't afford to live in Hackney anymore. That was perhaps 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It's the natural kind of like you're priced out of area. And so we're in the community where people were young artists, let's say the next generation artists. My age group all live in Hackney. Yeah, we're all in de Beauvoir. It's great, but you couldn't buy there now. That's 20 years ago. Yeah. So if we just go through where a 28-year-old and 33-year-old is moving to now, it's here. It's in this community, and it's also really it's a great diverse community as well. The Sarabande supports artists from 38 different countries, and even you've just had a little taster. I don't think if you really add it up, you've just met a French person, you've just met a Brazilian person, you've just met somebody from Hong Kong, you've just met a American, you've just met,
It's a global melting pot.
It's
right
a global melting pot.
Road.
You didn't even notice it as you walk through.
No, but you don't, because you're just too busy looking at the amazing work.
So, and again, this is an area that we can bring everybody together. So, we have this beautiful building, which it's grade 2 listed. It's 2 beautiful grand houses that make everybody feel at home. And your workplace is your home. So we want that feeling to resonate with the creatives, because we expect them to be here as much as possible. And so it's an area where artists are, where the fashion designers, it's close to their manufacturing. So it's a great area for those to be, so that they're on top of the, let's say, supply chain. We've got beautiful buildings, which have got great big, gorgeous studios.
Big windows, lots
of light. We have a gallery space which allows us to do exhibitions and talks and workshops, very similar to Haggerston, but it has a different vibe. Interestingly, a lot of the artists that want to do exhibitions, they prefer to do it in Tottenham, because the space is more intimate and it reflects their work better, whereas our Haggerston space is really big and quite imposing and almost impossible to make an impact in, because of the scale of the ceiling and the space. It's a bit more of a white gallery vibe, whereas the architecture here is much more conducive to something which is intimate. And I think there's something very nice about seeing work in an intimate environment. It's being up close to the work, meeting the artist. It's actually a nicer vibe for most of the artists to show their work in. They can connect better with the work and with the visitors. And yes, this is a temporary space, because we have been successful in obtaining lottery funding for a building which is about 6 doors away. And it's probably like this building that we're in is Georgian, and the building that's 6 doors away is Queen Anne. And it's an incredible building that will have a big garden space. It will have a big extension at the back, which will allow us to play with the architecture better, because this is old architecture. You probably don't know, but we can't, the way that the rooms are done here, because we have to protect the building, certain practices have to be in certain floors. The jewellers have to be in the basement with a solid floor because of machinery. And that will allow us in the new building, because we can build 2 big extensions into the garden, it will allow us an outside space, and it allows a bit more flexibility for practices to develop different works. And we have the next sort of 3 years really putting our feet under the table here, and we have a lot of local artists in the space. And most artists live fairly local to the area. Some are very, very close to the area. And it just means that we can also house different kinds of artists and house artists longer than before. So we used to have a 1-year residency, which is extremely tough for some creatives to, let's say, get to a point of security in their practice and financial security, which is, our rent is £1 a square foot. We don't really charge rent. It's the price of the Wi-Fi bill. Doesn't even cover the cleaning. And whether to protect an artist until they're ready to stand on their own in their practice. So now we have both artists that have practices that need big rooms, which come to Tottenham. We have artists that live in Tottenham. They obviously come to Tottenham. And then we have artists that perhaps have done the first year in Haggerston, and as their career is just about to tip into something which is, for them, life-changing, for them, gives them a career which is recognised, solid, and gives them the long-term practice security. It allows us to translate them from Haggerston to Tottenham, so that 4 of the artists in the building right now had a year in Haggerston and are doing their second year in Tottenham. And that's Paolo Casana, who is obviously an amazing fashion designer. And we've just got Kasia, who is the photographer who works with Wet Plate Collodion, who when she started her work is incredible, and she had very little recognition, amazingly. And I don't know why, because her work is so beautiful, incredible. And in the last year, she has just exploded in the last couple of months and has just finished her first shoot for Vogue in Greece, and has had a load of commissions just recently. And we've seen that in the time that she's been with us. And I'm sure that she would say that without the foundation, she wouldn't have been able to get to this point. We're really happy. That's what we want.
You've kind of said in the past that people need to be bold and they need to be fearless. How do you spot people? How do you, because obviously there's only so much space that you can have. How do you choose the people, or how do they come to you? And I know that there's 2 different parts here. Mm-hmm. There's the studios and then there's the scholarships. Let's talk a bit quickly about the studios.
We have an interview process. It's an open call in July. And we get applicants. It's an online application process for both spaces. And we get about 400 applicants, sometimes more, depends how the marketing goes. And we interview for 6 weeks, and we interview 6 hours a day. It's relentless. We interview about half of the artists. And I know we talk a little bit about, is it a talent pool? It's not meant to be a talent pool. Everybody is talented. There's some incredible talent in this world that we don't give studio spaces to. What we're trying to find is those creatives that can form a community together in that 1 year that will benefit each other, that will benefit the artists that will follow them and benefit the artists that have gone ahead of them, that don't overlap with another artist that we've had in our alumni, so that everybody has their own space. So
it's a massive jigsaw puzzle when you're interviewing.
It's a massive jigsaw puzzle.
Are you sometimes sitting there with your heart thudding, going, "This person's incredible, this person's incredible," but they're not going to fit with the other people that are incredible? How do you?
It's more likely to sit in an interview and say, "You don't need us," because sometimes people come and they don't need us, and we want to do impact. We want to know that we've been part of it. Like, we are a foundation, we are a charity. We're not a talent pool. We're not an agency. Yeah. And we sometimes it goes against us, because there is success with many of the creatives, because London and the UK sometimes, let's not get political, sometimes...
Go on, I know you want to.
We have the best creative talent in this country from all different countries. I'm not talking about British talent, I'm just talking about how lucky we are to be in a city with so many amazing people coming to want to study in our creative arts. And the economy that it creates is immense. The cultural capital is immense, and it makes us one of the leading cities in the world. And Sarabande is happy to be part of that pipeline. And I don't care where you're from, don't care what your background is. When you come to a studio application, I don't ask about financial background. I don't want to know. I can't check. So I don't want to know, because I can't legitimately check your financial background. All I need to know is that what you do is unique. I like it to be a bit bonkers. It's like, why would you do that? What are you doing that for? You're You've just seen Adam, who basically is an artist who uses latex to suck himself into 3D sculptures. When you think of that, it's like, why would you do that? But it's amazing that you do, because otherwise we will be looking in galleries in 15 years' time at the same artists that have been around for 300 years. So what do we look for? We look for somebody who does something, and I don't know why you would do that. And perhaps...
The mind-boggling factor.
The mind-boggling factor. And when you pop it all together, and then you think that you're passionate about what you do, and you think you're going to do it whether people like it or not. That's the people that we look for, because, unfortunately, even success in press doesn't give you financial success. And people who make financial success might not be recognised in the press.
And is that also partly why you opened House of Bandits, which we are currently sitting in, and which is festooned with amazing, amazing artworks and fashion and plates that you can buy? So there is a kind of retail arm. What made you set this up? Because obviously it's a no-brainer, but also...
Well, we set it up in COVID, actually. And we set it up because in the first year of COVID, 2020, all of the fashion designers, all the stores cancelled their orders because they were closed. So all of our fashion designers had stock sitting in their studios that nobody would take off them. All of our artists and jewellers had nowhere to show their work because all the galleries were closed. And an artist generally goes from show to create new work. I'm making new work for this exhibition. I'm making work for this show. When you remove all that structure from them, they were kind of like a little lost. And so we were sitting there looking at artists who didn't know what to produce next because they were looking for the reason of what they would normally know what the show would be, or they would know where they were showing and what was expected from a curator. And so in COVID, we decided to open House of Bandits, and we opened it in Mayfair. And we took a space from Burberry. We took the old Thomas's restaurant, 5,000 square foot. And we opened it the first day of freeze. And we had 1,500 people come through our doors in 39 days. It was a big space, so it was COVID safe. 5,000 square foot, just saying, with masks on. But we asked all the artists, because we're a team of 4 people, we asked all the artists to work in House of Bandits, and we put artworks next door to Craig Green, next door to Bianca Saunders, next door to a piece of jewellery. We didn't do the gallery space where...
It was meant to be super democratic. It's kind of how you envisaged it. And it still is.
It is. It's like, we put the price of artworks. It's not a gallery where you're afraid to ask. It's just the name of the artwork and the price. So don't feel embarrassed. Now you don't have to ask the price. Now you should ask me that what did the artist want to convey. Now you can talk about the artwork without feeling embarrassed if you can afford it or not. Just enjoy it. If you want to buy it, I'm really happy because you're supporting the artist and the foundation. So we started it because of that. We started it because we wanted a place that the artists could and the fashion designers could put in the world what they wanted to put out, what they thought was important. And, I believe that people do want to support the foundation and they want to support artists directly. So we hit that sweet spot with pieces that you just can't find elsewhere.
I think people just want new things. They want to discover sort of new stuff that they haven't seen everywhere else, that has like a good story. And I know you don't like talking that much about yourself, but it does sort of segue nicely into a question that I'm fascinated to ask you, which is like, when you were growing up, like what do you remember like being the triggers to where you have come to? Like what were those? Was there a piece of clothing or piece of art, something that made you go, oh my God, I want to work in the creative industries?
I'm from the era when you didn't think you wanted to work in the creative industries.
Yes.
I
relate.
Yes.
Or you think you can't.
Well, you did. It wasn't really an industry.
No. Yes, that's also
It wasn't really an industry in those days. It was just... so my mother had... I'm going to ruin all perceptions of me. My mother had a market store. I grew up just connecting with people and talking to them about what they wanted to buy. And I love that. I do, as you know, I started my main career working for Lee McQueen. I also, I love things that are just slightly bonkers, and I think it just opens our eyes. And
what do you think when he first met you? Because you were the first person he employed, which is like this incredible story, which is relatively well documented in fashion, but maybe not so much outside of it. But what is it that you think he saw in you? Was it because you were a bit bonkers?
I don't think I'm bonkers. I think I'm desperately boring. I'm like the yin and yang to a good creative.
Yeah.
You know, apart from working with Liv, I also work for Thom Browne, who also literally puts out the most creative work out there. And I also studied fashion. So I have a creative background. I studied fashion. I worked in Hyper.
Which was an amazing store in Kensington High Street.
Yes.
For those that don't know.
Yes. So, going back, I've had that amazing career. I spent my early years making puffball skirts and buying copies of Vivienne Westwood because I couldn't afford to buy it on a sewing machine. I was that kid who bought secondhand clothes at the age of 17 and cut it up into something else. So, that existed. That was part of not wanting to buy. I tell you what, I never had luxury on my radar. Put it that way. That didn't exist in my upbringing. So making something creative and doing it yourself was
the segue.
The segue. And Lee, I'm very supportive of somebody putting something really unique and different out there. I think that's what the world needs. I think that I don't see a great desire for us all to be following in the same pathway as each other. We're all unique. I believe you make something that might seem so strange and different and unsellable, but there's enough people in this massive world who would like it to satisfy you to have a good career. And by a good career and a good life, money isn't everything. The quality of life that you have is important, but quality of life is driven not only by the size of your house, but by the strength of your community, by the
things that make you smile.
The things that make you smile. And I truly believe that.
When you're working with people like Thom Browne and Lee McQueen, are there those moments where they're planning a show? Because I've been to some of Tom's shows and I'm literally sitting there thinking, wow, okay, this is happening. Were there moments where you're with either of them where you thought, I really need to say no, but I can't because I want to harness their creativity?
I would not say no to either of those creators because they are the creative geniuses. And why would I want to harness something which is able to be out there? So, and that's a creative expression. There is.
But because at the beginning with Lee, you were obviously managing the finances, doing the tax returns, the front row seating, like you were doing everything. Yeah. So, and when you're the CEO of a brand, like it's a big job.
Yeah.
But obviously you know how to bring creativity out of people, which is a skill.
I don't bring creativity out of people. I allow creativity to exist. I think that's my role. It's not to bring it out. It's a conversation I have with the artists all the time. It's like, I'm not telling you what to do. You've decided what to do. You're responsible every day for what you want to do and how you want to live your life. Every day you can make a decision on what your career looks like, what your creative output looks like. So I'm not here to dictate to you what to do. You want advice on how to make that work to support you. I'm having that conversation with you. Like, let's find the person who loves what you're doing. Who is this person?
Yeah.
And, I am quite good at really making you think about, what do you care about? Which other people care about this?
Yeah.
Let's find them to see your work. So that's, I think, the secret of
it's what drives you.
It's what drives you. It's finding the community for everybody's creative output. Everybody has a community in this huge world. Some of them are easier to find because they might be geographically local to you.
Yeah.
But some of them are around the world, and now you can find them through Instagram. You can find them through in real life, in events,
Yeah.
you know, you have a strong belief in what you do. Other people will believe in that as well. You've just got to find them.
And London Fashion Week is 40 this weekend. What do you think has changed the most in the time since it began? And what do you think has changed the most as like for fashion designers now versus...
Okay, I can't remember half the designers who are showing, so don't ask me their names. That's changed. I used to know them all.
Do you think fashion shows are still relevant?
For some designers, yes. For everybody, absolutely not. I think that some designers, everybody should play to their strengths. And for some designers, they're creating an experience which is incredible. And Thom, for example, I mean, you know, I can't imagine him creating anything, wanting to create anything than that unique fashion show, which is a moment that you're in. I had a conversation yesterday with a jewellery designer, and we were talking about how she connects with customers. And I said, what are you really good at? If I talked about Roland Murray, and Roland Murray was in a room with a load of women, every one of those women would buy a dress off him because he made you feel, he looked at you, sunk you in the eyes, and you felt like the sexiest woman in the world. And so you put on that sexy dress and you feel sexy and you walk out the door.
Yeah.
That's Roland's special skill.
Yeah.
And I said to the jeweller, what's yours? Are you strong on Instagram? Are you strong in your visual language? She said, actually, if I get people into my studio space, I can talk to them for 3 or 4 hours about all my pieces because she does mudlarking. So it's not one piece. Every piece is unique. She could talk about this I found here, and this is an old piece of pottery and then she puts it all together in these pieces of jewellery. And I said, so that's how you make sales, is you bring people into your space and you talk to them about your stories, about how you find these pieces. Why aren't you releasing on Instagram 3 slots a month that you invite 3 special people to come and experience that with you? That's what you do. Not everybody could do that. Not everybody wants to do that. Not everybody has the product and to give that experience. So everybody should
find the right thing for them.
For them.
Yeah.
So when we talk about fashion shows, if it's really right for you, yes. But if you're better doing a supper club, which one of our fashion designers does, Brazilian supper clubs. And I'm like, so why aren't you doing a supper club as a showroom? Like, that's who you are. Nobody
Do you
else
still
is gonna
like
do
going
it.
to fashion shows though? Do you still get a buzz from it? Or do they just make you
I
feel...
only go to a few.
Okay. Are there any fashion shows in your career that still give you goosebumps when you think about them?
There's been a lot of amazing fashion shows that at the time, no, I did get goosebumps at the time, it's true.
Well, they were also
But they were
mixed
also
with
very fraught and kind of like...
shredding nightmares
Yes,
as well. Of
a
course.
little bit of both. Now I can look back on fondly and say, wasn't it amazing? There's been some amazing fashion shows that I've been fortunate enough to have worked for some and been part of the experience with some of the probably
best fashion show people ever.
Yes. It's my little that's what I do.
Yeah. And one of my questions that I always find interesting to ask people is about the kind of combination, and the Sarabande really represents this in many ways, between art and fashion and how they bleed across one another, and all of this like incredible idea of how designers build their own worlds. What's your like position on is fashion art and how they speak to one another? How do you see it?
Well, I don't really know how to define art nowadays. And I'm glad about that, because if we just looked historically, it's a bit of a flat concept. So art to me is just a communication tool. It's the best communication tool since day one. Paintings on the walls of caves is art. And if a fashion designer is putting something out here, it doesn't even have to be a really large scale show presentation. It can be the simplest example of something that moves them, shown in the simplest way in detail. My description of art is it's just a very strong communication tool that connects with people on a level. So I'm happy to see all the practices that fall into that category be categorized. And in the same way, there's also commercial art that isn't meant to do that. It's meant to decorate your walls, and that's also fine. It's also fine if it brings us happiness. So I'm a bit let's say grey on the concept of art, how it crosses into fashion, how we draw the line, who decided where the line went. It wasn't me. I don't think anybody has that right to put that line down in the sand.
What do you think is the future for fashion in particular? It seems to be like there's been obviously so much conversation in the media about the last John Galliano and Margiela show, which I think really resonated with the people because it was such a performance. What are you excited about to come? Like whether it's in the studios here or like just in the wider world, what's getting you going at the minute?
I'm loving designers that are creating, not trying to be the big designer with everything, doing every garment and trying to represent everything, but are really focused on creating something. I think now, like the idea about dressing in one designer look from head to toe is not really me. Might be today, but it's not really what I would be out doing. I love the idea about collecting pieces, a bit like you would curate your house on your walls. So do I love the idea about a designer? You saw Parisier, she creates incredible knitwear. She isn't trying to be the evening dress, she isn't trying to be everything, but if I want a piece of fabulous knitwear that's embellished and crosses over into something that's what she does. She does it with authenticity, she cares about it, she loves it, she's extremely passionate about it. I want that in my wardrobe, and it doesn't have to be for everybody. I don't want to see everybody wearing the same as me. Really, I don't think we all have to dress the same. I think this
so boring,
that idea. So and I mix it with some basic pieces along the way. But I do think that having designers that make just what they do and mixing it in with other pieces that you collect that are old and maybe not expensive and maybe secondhand is a very individualistic way of us approaching clothing going forward, rather than, not for everybody, but for, let's say, the community that I see coming up next.
It does feel like there's kind of big luxury fashion over here, and when you speak to younger designers, which is not to say that they're not ambitious for their futures, but I agree that there does seem to be a kind of move towards this more thoughtful, like, I don't know, like this kind of much more individual kind of way of thinking about, not thinking about gender, thinking about being responsible, all these things that like do seem to be topics that we care about.
I really don't think gender is even a topic right now. In the conversations that we're talking about, as in, would I love a Paolo Cassano shirt? Yeah, I don't even know if it does men's or women's. It doesn't really matter. Like, it's just, we're talking about materiality, we're talking about silhouette, we're talking about details, we're talking about what he does rather than who it's for. So,
who's the best person? Whose wardrobe would you most like to have a look in?
Oh, I have the best wardrobe.
What's your favourite thing in your wardrobe? Oh, is it like choosing a child?
No, it's just. It's just all about to go on auction.
What?
I know. It has to. I have no.
You're auctioning your wardrobe?
I am.
I didn't know that.
I know.
When, where, how?
Tell Taylor. I mean, I can't fit into it, and that's the reality. I am not that girl anymore. And
has that been quite a hard decision to come to?
No, it hasn't. No, I think I've got all my memories of it. My memories are there, and I've shared some pieces with the Met, and I've shared everything with McQueen to take blocks to look at everything that they need to refer. Like, I've done what I need to do to make sure that everybody that needs to see those pieces. I've actually got a beautiful piece in the next Met show, which I gave to Andrew for the upcoming exhibition, Costume Institute. And that piece was sitting in my house. What was it doing there? Like, It's going to be seen by everybody.
Let it go free.
Let it go free.
Yeah.
Let it fly.
It's quite funny because I was listening to the Vogue Runway podcast the other day, and they were talking about Chloe Sevigny was on it, and she was saying that she did her auction recently, and she was saying how weird it is when she keeps seeing people in New York wearing her old clothes, and they were going, do you ever see them and go, oh, I wish I hadn't auctioned that? So you have all this to come.
Yeah, I won't feel like that. I really won't. I'm super hard.
Okay, the very last question.
It's not true.
What apart from Tottenham, what's next for this amazing foundation? What do you want to do next? What would be the dream?
So, I don't know about the dream. Well, we're going to New York this year. We do this amazing project every year in Sarabande, and it's called What Now? We do it in June. And to go back to your point about, designers, were they fashion, are they art? People come to Sarabande and they come and ask advice, and they've graduated from St. Martin's or they graduated from another course. Like, I don't know what to do. What do I do now? What now? And so about 4 years ago, we started to say, you know what, let's put together a whole programme where we're going to give you some advice on what now and how to deal with that situation of graduating, not having enough money to live in the city, not wanting to go home to your hometown where you haven't lived for 4 years and where you don't feel you belong. We're going to talk about the realities of next steps. And I'm not talking about setting up on your own, because you spend a whole year doing programs of young business setups. But I'm talking about what you do when you graduate, and what it looks like, and what jobs look like, and what skills are, and how important is college, and also to see it's just one step of your life, and every day you're making another decision about your career and about your pathway. So we do What Now in London. We have stations in the foundation's main space, and we have Burberry, McQueen, Stella McCartney, we have One Granary, we have Craig Green, we have some art institutions. So we have set up all their stations. We have headhunters come in, and it's a free event for everybody to attend who's graduating and feels a bit lost. And we do a panel talk about 3 people who've graduated between 2 and 6 years. And they talk about, I left college and I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I worked in a shop, and then I did this, and I met this person, and now I do this, and I'm really happy. And we're not talking about, I'm a big designer, you all recognise I'm talking about just truly, I do what I love to do, I'm really good at it. I didn't realise this job existed, and now I do this. I took a job in a store and I was really interested in sustainability, so now I lead a sustainability team because I went to work in a shop, and now I'm in the head office and I'm leading it because I was super engaged and I wanted to bring it to the attention. And every day you can make those decisions to do what you value and what you want to do. So we're taking it to New York in May, and we've got all the colleges are super excited. We're slightly petrified because we're a small team of 4 people, and 2 of us are going to go to New York and run a station, 22 stations. We've got all these brands involved who are going to take stations. So we've got Thom Browne sending teams, LVMH are sending lots of their teams. We've got, I think McQueen are going to send teams. We've got, we're talking to Kate. We've got, last week the other day, Maria Corneo sending teams. So it's a really good mix of brands that are both big, but also small brands with very strong values, brands that you might not have heard of. And they all take stations, and everyone turns up, and you can go and speak to it's basically the best careers fair with people that you'll never meet otherwise, and you'll think you'll never be in front of these people. And they're just normal people. And they talk about, I left, and this skill's great. If you work in a shop, I'm more likely to hire you because you've worked in a shop than if you haven't worked in a shop. And it's the reality of what people, it's just telling you, college is just one step.
And also opening up the conversation.
Yeah.
Which is obviously a big part of being a creative person, is to find conversations that are inspiring, that take you to the next place.
And you're in control of it. Like, I do believe that we don't have to lean on everybody else. Everything you are in control of who you speak to, how you speak to other people, how you treat them, and the opportunities that you find and that you take.
And are you going to roll this out globally?
No, let's just get through New York, because then we've got to come back and do New York, and then we've got to come back and do London. So, because we're still doing London in June, so it's a lot of work. It's a huge amount of work for a very small team, but we love it.
Amazing. Trino, thank you so much for talking to us today. It's been brilliant.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You've been listening to In Talks with me, Danielle Radoichin. The sound and theme music is by Woogie Productions, and the artwork is by Patrick War. If you enjoyed this episode, please pass it on to someone who you think might also like it. Please subscribe and leave a review. To pitch for guest ideas, you can DM me via my socials at Danielle Radoichin. Thanks for listening.